One airplane carrying 239 people, all alive. Then, within minutes, it vanished. Not just from civilian radar, but from normal communication. There was no mayday call, no explosion, no emergency signal, just silence. Throughout the history of aviation, thousands of accidents have occurred. Most of them were eventually explained. Investigators found the wreckage, analyzed the evidence, and uncovered the truth. But one case has remained unanswered for more than a decade: Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. A mystery that challenged aviation experts, governments, intelligence agencies, and search teams across the world. The question isn't simply where did the airplane go? The real question is, did the world overlook something that was right in front of us from the very beginning? It was March 8th, 2014. At 12:41 a.m., Kuala Lumpur International Airport was operating just like any other night. Passengers had completed boarding, the cabin crew was performing final safety checks, and the flight crew was preparing for departure. Inside the cockpit sat Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a highly experienced pilot with nearly 18,000 flight hours, alongside First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, who was completing the final stage of his training. The aircraft was Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, scheduled to fly from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The journey was expected to take about 6 hours. Nothing seemed unusual. The airplane itself was a Boeing 777-200ER, one of the most reliable commercial aircraft ever built. It had safely completed millions of passenger flights around the world. There was no reason for anyone to believe that this flight would be any different. Families settled into their seats. Some passengers closed their eyes, hoping to sleep through the journey. Others watched movies, read books, or thought about business meetings waiting for them in Beijing. None of the 239 people on board had any idea that the next few hours would become one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in aviation history. As the aircraft accelerated down the runway, its engines roared to full power. Seconds later, MH370 lifted into the dark Malaysian sky. Everything appeared completely normal. The pilots communicated routinely with air traffic control. The aircraft climbed toward its assigned cruising altitude. Every onboard system was functioning properly. On radar, MH370 followed its planned route just like thousands of commercial flights every single day. About 38 minutes after takeoff, the aircraft approached the boundary between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace. Following standard procedure, communication would soon be transferred to Vietnam's air traffic control. Then came the final confirmed transmission from the cockpit. "Good night, Malaysian 370. It was calm, professional, routine. No stress, no warning, no indication that anything was wrong. No one listening to those words could have imagined they would become the last confirmed communication ever received from Flight MH370. Only minutes later, something unexpected happened. The aircraft's transponder, the device that allows civilian radar to identify and track an aircraft, suddenly stopped transmitting. At first, controllers assumed it was a technical problem. Equipment failures happen from time to time. They tried calling the cockpit. No response. They called again. Still nothing. Minutes passed. The airplane never answered. The silence became impossible to ignore. At that moment, nobody realized this wasn't simply a communication failure. It was the beginning of a mystery that would trigger the largest search operation in aviation history. But the most surprising discovery was still to come. Although MH370 had disappeared from civilian radar, Malaysian military radar continued tracking an unidentified aircraft. That aircraft made an unexpected turn. Instead of continuing northeast toward Beijing, it turned west. Investigators later confirmed it was MH370. That single turn changed everything. If the airplane was flying to Beijing, why had it suddenly reversed course? The cockpit remained silent. No hijacking code, no emergency declaration, no distress call. Just a Boeing 777 flying through the darkness on a path no one expected. For hours, confusion spread across air traffic control centers. Some believed the aircraft had diverted. Others assumed it had landed somewhere unexpectedly. Controllers contacted neighboring countries. Airport after airport checked their records. The answer was always the same. MH370 wasn't there. By sunrise, Malaysia Airlines officially announced that one of its aircraft was missing. Within hours, governments from around the world launched what would become the largest and most expensive search effort in aviation history. Aircraft, naval ships, satellites, and surveillance systems from Malaysia, Australia, China, the United States, and several other nations joined the operation. Initially, search teams focused on the South China Sea, the area where MH370 was last seen on civilian radar. For days, aircraft flew grid patterns over the ocean, naval ships scanned the water with radar and sonar, satellites captured image after image, searching for any sign of debris, but the ocean gave back nothing. No wreckage, no fuel, no life rafts. It was like the plane had simply vanished. Then, investigators found the clue that changed the entire search. Even though the transponder was off, the plane's satellite data unit was still talking. Every hour it sent an automatic signal, a handshake to an Inmarsat satellite 35,000 kilometers above Earth. Those signals didn't say where the plane was, but they proved it was still in the sky for hours after it disappeared. Using that data, experts calculated two possible corridors, one going north, one going south, and the southern corridor led to one place, the remote southern Indian Ocean, far from shipping lanes, far from radar, far from any help. The search moved there immediately. It became the most expensive and complex search in aviation history. For months, ships mapped the seafloor. Underwater drones searched areas deeper than Mount Everest is tall. They found shipwrecks. They found geological formations, but they did not find MH370. Then, 16 months later, a piece of metal washed up on Réunion Island. It was a flaperon from a Boeing 777 wing. Tests confirmed it. This was from MH370. More debris followed over the years, found on beaches in Africa, Madagascar, and islands across the Indian Ocean. All of it pointed to the same conclusion. The aircraft was in the southern Indian Ocean, but why? The investigation looked at every possibility: pilot suicide, hijacking, fire in the cockpit, catastrophic failure, but without the main wreckage and the black boxes, no one could say for certain. The official report ended with no definitive answer. More than a decade has passed. 239 people are still missing, and MH370 remains the greatest mystery in aviation history, a plane that took off with 239 souls and disappeared into silence until the ocean gives up its secret. The question will remain: what really happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370?